Chat, welcome to 2022, chat. Welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. It has been so long, my loves. How have y'all been, my darlings? My sweet, sweet chatters. Y'all want to go back to 2021? Let's hope that 2022 is going to be a better year. May not be, maybe, who knows? We're going to try to do what we can. Y'all doing okay today? Let's go. So we've got some good stuff planned for y'all. So welcome to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. I'm a psychiatrist practicing in Boston. Just a reminder that everything we discuss on stream today is intended to be for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended to be taken as medical advice. So if y'all have a medical concern or question, please go see a licensed professional. I see we have a hype train running. Thank y'all very much for the subs and donations, etc. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to be talking a little bit today about a couple of things, so let me just kind of dive right in. So let's start with announcements. So today we're going to be doing... Okay, let me just take a look at this. So couple things to discuss. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing in 2022. I'm going to share a couple of thoughts. This is just more for my own benefit than y'all, but I guess y'all as well. No, just kidding. Just to let y'all understand what, so I know a lot of people have supported the stream. You guys support us in all kinds of different ways, whether it be talking to us about, talking to your friends about us and recommending videos and things like that. That's really awesome that y'all are doing that, whether it's direct financial support through subscriptions and things like that. So thank y'all for doing all that stuff. And the last and most important thing is that y'all are benefiting from the work that we do. And so the reason that we're here is to help you hopefully understand yourself a little bit better. And if you understand yourself a little bit better, hopefully your life can start to move in a slightly better direction, whether that's optimizing an already good life or that's sort of trying to start the process of building a good life. Like either one is totally fine. So we're really here to help, and we're really happy that, y'all are hopefully being helped. So a couple of things about 2022. So I think the biggest challenge that we're going to have, and we're actually going to take a quick look at a post, but the biggest challenge we have in 2022 is to figure out like what to do and how we can help more. So we're going to take a quick look at a Reddit thread where we're sort of asking people like, what do y'all want from 2022? And there's a lot of good stuff in there. So we're going to just talk a little bit about that. I think the biggest thing that I'm sort of beginning to realize is that if we want to make meaningful impact, we don't have to use one medium to satisfy all of the things that we could be doing. This is part of the reason that we did Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health, which, by the way, is still, there's still a promotional pricing, I think, going on. So if you guys want to get in on that and you haven't checked it out, highly recommend it. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are going to sort of build a little bit off of the guide, but as usual, we're going to try to keep everything today to be kind of complete and comprehensive on its own and doesn't require y'all to buy the guide or anything like that. But at the same time, there's going to be some concepts that we don't regularly touch on because they're covered in the guide. So if y'all haven't watched the guide, definitely check it out. I think there's a lot of stuff, especially in the meditation guide, that we're going to be sort of talking about today. Maybe some stuff in the anxiety guide, but less so. And we're also thinking about, what to do for 2022. So a couple of things just about 2022 in general. I know 2021 was rough for a lot of people, and hopefully this year will be better. But I think that we really don't know what's going to happen, and like that's okay. I think the most important thing is that we try to move forward, like no matter what happens. So sometimes y'all will be surprised, but sometimes tragedy, even if you think things are bad, tragedy can strike very suddenly. And even if you think things are really good and you have a lot to be grateful for, tragedy can strike very suddenly and unexpectedly. And that, unfortunately, is part of life. And that's just what happens. So, even you just have to deal with it when it comes. And so, we'll see how we deal with what tragedies come up. So, yeah. So a couple of other things. So what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. So a lot of times the new year has people deciding to do stuff. But the problem is that you can decide to do something, but then they usually tend to fall off after a while. So we're going to start by trying to understand, okay, like if we want to understand how to make a New Year's resolution stick, we have to understand why New Year's resolutions don't stick and fix those things. And generally speaking, my experience has been that people tend to like overgeneralize and be imprecise in diagnosing why they can't stick with a New Year's resolution. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different dimensions of how New Year's resolutions work, and especially how the mind works. I've sort of noticed that sticking with a New Year's resolution is the closest to, in my professional work, giving up a substance that you're addicted to. So it's kind of tricky. I'm not trying to devalue the experiences of people with addictions, but what I've actually found, I know it's kind of bizarre, but the tools that I use to help people stick to New Year's resolutions are the same tools and understanding that you need to get rid of an addiction. And the key thing there is it's about understanding how your mind functions and what it's actually shooting for. So we're going to talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions. Bonus points if your New Year's resolution is to get off of a substance. So then what we're going to do, or actually before that, we're going to actually take a quick look at a Reddit post where people are sharing perspectives on what they want from us in 2022. And then we're going to talk a lot about, so there's a post about, I forgot how to socialize. So let's like understand what's going on there. How do you resist pessimism? So I think our world is becoming more and more pessimistic. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to understand that and what to do with it. And the last post is going to be, I find everything cringy. So like, what is cringe and how do you deal with cringe? So that's what we've got on docket for today. Sound good? And I think we're going back to a regular streaming schedule. So we're going to be streaming on Wednesday and Friday, and hopefully we'll be able to do an interview soon. Sounds good? Okay. All right. So let's take a look. So what do you want to see from Healthy Gamer and Dr. K in 2022? Okay, so first of all, thanks to the Healthy Gamer team for everything they already do. Awesome. Okay, so I guess that we didn't post this. But of course, good. So you've helped so many people, including me, improve their lives, and I will be forever grateful for that. But of course, good things can be even better, and that's why I'm making this thread. I have some personal ideas, but I'll post them as comments as they're on equal footing with everyone else's ideas. Cool, right? So that's awesome. How I hope to use this thread: post each separate idea you have as a top-level comment. Upvote ideas if you agree with them, think the team should implement them so they can be surfaced for easier browsing from the HG team. Comment ideas if you have refinements on how they could be implemented. So also I realize it might be a bit presumptuous for me to post this as I'm unaffiliated with HG, but I didn't see a mega thread on the topic or anything else, so here we are. Cool, right? So please, if anyone from the HG team sees this, sort the comments by controversial. I think it's really illuminating to see which suggestions have the most split opinions in the community. Okay, so first of all, this is fantastic. So like, I know it sounds, I love the depth of, I love so many things about this post. So like, this is like, I'm so happy to see someone in our community posting this because there's so many elements of it that are like, not like the rest of the internet. And I just want to highlight those for a second. So the first is this person realizes there's a gap in the world, right? Oh, like no one from the HG official has posted about to ask for feedback from the community about what we want to do in 2022. Like we haven't done that, right? So they look at something that they don't see us doing. And instead of like complaining, right? So they're like, hey, someone should really post and ask the community what they want from 2022, because that's what a lot of the internet does, right? So we just complain about stuff. They're like, this isn't being done. This person actually goes out of their way to like try to fix the problem. So this is, it's awesome, right? So they're saying, I didn't see this thing. So they explain where they're coming from. They explain like their gratitude, right? So they're not going to like, maybe they could offend someone. And then they also are pointing out that they have some personal ideas, but they're going to be like kind of egalitarian and put them on equal footing. They also are recognizing, and because making a post about my own ideas intimidating, they're being self-reflective, right? And then they're also respecting boundaries. Like, this is awesome. So also they acknowledge that maybe it's not their place to do this. They're sort of stating where they're coming from. They're like acknowledging like the boundary and not overstepping me. And they're saying, hey, if this is out of line, like, please let me know. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we want from this community, is for y'all to, first of all, take responsibility and do things, right? In your own life and other lives. Like, if you want to be the change that you want to see in the world. Second thing is like acknowledge your own kind of biases and do it with humility. You're not saying I'm doing this because I'm the best at this. In fact, the opposite. And they're saying, these are just my ideas. This is something I think needs to be done. And if I'm overstepping, please let me know. And then this is also cool because they're also like directly communicating with us, right? They're sort of telling us, hey, here's what I think would be useful. So this is awesome. Like, people are calling this person a GigaChat, and like, absolutely, this is what we want our community. This is what the internet should be like. This is a prime example. Like, imagine if discussions, like, go to your favorite place where people discuss things on the internet, and like, just imagine if people did this. If people were like, hey, I think this is a solution. It's not, I'm just not going to criticize you and say, hey, y'all should be doing this. I'm going to try to actually help out and contribute and make the world a better place on my own. I'm going to approach my own ideas with humility and invite other people's perspectives. I'm here to like listen to other people. This is not just about me. Also, second thing that's strange on the internet, which is like people on the internet don't behave like that. And then like acknowledging boundaries, right? And they're like, oh, by the way, this may not be appropriate for me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. And if I screwed up, please let me know, and I'm willing to accept feedback. Like, they're wanting other people to approach things with an open mind. They're approaching things with an open mind themselves. So it's like really fantastic. So we did this, right? We sorted by controversial. So let's see what we've got. Okay. I'm going to add this to the list, something I brought up in the previous thread regarding the upsurge of discussion around misogyny. So we knew this was coming, right? There simply needs to be more work done than a single 30-minute segment of a stream to address the problem of sexism and misogyny in this community, especially in light of how the sub absolutely spontaneously combusted after Dr. K did that stream. This is just a fact. I think the amount of backlash to Dr. K's misogyny video is a sign that this community is absolutely not safe for everyone, as much as Dr. K himself advertises it to be. I'm not privy to how this company works. I'm going to assume these things all have been considered in private meetings, but I have a couple of suggestions to tackle this problem. What I'd like to see, occasionally having guests who are feminist scholars or other social scientists, activists on the stream for educational purposes, similar to when Dr. K had that colleague of his on to discuss psychedelics. I don't mean to undermine Dr. K's expertise, but I think a non-psych focused social scientist could offer some much needed perspective. Good, conscious, interdisciplinary work could really benefit this community, I think, especially since a lot of people, we hear a lot of issues we hear people discuss in the interviews are not solely psychological. If mental health is such a pervasive issue, why don't we get some more diverse perspectives on it? So great. There was only one group stream that focused on misogyny in games, while nearly every other group session was all men or predominantly men. Diversify the interviews. Okay, so that's good to hear. Hear people discuss their experiences and struggles with misogyny, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, etc. Again, I don't see a good reason to avoid moving in this direction if you were going to posit Healthy Gamer as a community where all kinds of people are welcome. One last thing is Dr. K needs to call chat out when they're being sexist. This goes for any kind of gross, judgmental, discriminatory shitposting happening in this community. We've heard discomfort expressed at how chat behaves when women are on stream, so why can't Dr. K pause for 2 seconds and tell it like it is? Or alternatively, have mods work harder to mute or ban chatters behaving like this and keep an eye out for them when someone of a marginalized background comes on stream. There's nasty behavior. So Dr. K says in his video on mass shootings, sometimes we need to recognize certain acts as evil. While we are all responsible for this as a collective, I really want to see the Healthy Gamer team hold true to these words. Okay, so that's useful. So remember, this is controversial. So this person shared their thoughts. A lot of people disagreed with this. A lot of people agreed with it. I agree it was disheartening to see the community fall apart after the misogyny video. While Dr. K's video was well-intended, it seemed like it rubbed people on all sides of the argument in the wrong way for all kinds of reasons that largely boil down to, but my opinion or perspective was misrepresented or not heard. I think that's a very, very good analysis, right? So we succeeded in pissing everyone off, which is okay. So I hope that respectfully representing and examining many different perspectives from many different people will help mitigate that while also opening people's eyes to the others' lived experiences. Oh, so this is a response to that one. Okay, so let's just less opinions and political nonsense. I'm not quite sure what that means. So it seems like the 15-minute straw man video he did about guns and, in my opinion, women's lives are more difficult. I don't think I ever said women's lives are more difficult. I know a lot of people think I said that, but I don't think I ever said that. Okay, so it seems like people were unhappy with the school shooting video, which is okay. So here's another thing. Price the guide in a way that's better aligned with AOE healing mental health at scale. This keeps fluctuating between +2 and -1. And anecdotally, I've seen multiple people praise how affordable the guide is and multiple other people lament at how expensive it is. Personally, I take this as a strong indicator that the audience is segmented and more data gathering is warranted. First, thanks so much for the free content, for having fair pricing, refund policies, and financial support programs for coaching. You're welcome. We work really hard to try to do that. I think the guide's pricing strategy should reflect a goal of reaching as many people as possible. Right now, I don't think it's easy to swallow the price for people who don't live in a developed Western nation, lower income, and honestly, possibly even mid-low income people in developed Western nations. Okay. So this looks pretty long. I think if the guide is priced lower, then more people can be helped since the barrier to entry is lower. More people are likely to buy the guide if they were on the fence. Okay. All right. HG will actually make more money overall. 5 people buying at 20 is greater than 1 person buying at 60. Presuming that more people do buy at 20 than at 60. Okay, so this is all fair stuff. So the point is, like, I think I'm going to comment in general about a couple of things. If there isn't an easy way for you to find Dr. K reacting to your own post, oh, yeah, okay, that's a good point. So we'll try to work on that. As a new parent, I'd like to see more parenting videos. Okay. All right. So these are all excellent perspectives. So I know that we made the video on, addressing misogyny, and that seemed to create a lot of discussion. So for the record, how can I say this and not be misconstrued? So for people that were upset with the misogyny video, I think it's okay. I'm glad we did it. Not to say that, how can I say this? Not to say that our job is to upset you, but I think if we talk about something in our community and people are not happy with that, that's very, very useful feedback for us to have, right? Like, so I know a big part of what we espouse in terms of our philosophy is to focus on actions instead of outcomes, and that it's okay to make mistakes. So a lot of people may have felt like the misogyny video was a mistake. I think it's fair if you have that opinion. I'm not going to disagree with you. And also, like, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to understand. In fact, it's very important to have discussions or videos like that help us dig into and understand what this community needs. So in a sense, I'm very happy with the video. I'm not happy that people were offended by it or hurt by it or felt marginalized or whatever. That's not the goal. So if that happened, and so I'm sorry for that. And at the same time, I think it's like really, really important to have that conversation, and more importantly, figure out from like a conflict resolution standpoint, like how can we have this conversation? Because this is a conversation that needs to be had, right? The fact that we didn't do a great job in having it doesn't change the fact that it's really important to have, and that we should like keep trying even though it's playing with fire. So this is where, as an organization, this is where we kind of get stuck. Because like, here's a hot button issue. So like, if we think about it, do we talk about it or do we not talk about it? If we talk about it, we're bound to piss some people off because we're not going to be perfect at talking about it. And so then like, if we piss some people off, are people going to leave our community? Like, are we going to grow less? Like, there are all kinds of outcomes that could come with that. But I think the mission of this organization is to focus on things that are important and like try to have that conversation and even model for the rest of the world, like, how do we have these conversations? And if there's one community that I have faith in, a la like that person who made the post to begin with, it's going to be this one, right? I don't think that any of the echo chamber communities are going to be the ones that figure out the solution to like gender dynamics in our current society. Any community that is 100% pro one thing and alienates the opposite side is like not going to be like what we need. So sure, like, people have had bad experiences and they need to be supported and they need a safe place to discuss things. But if we're really going to like fix this, it's not going to be discounting the perspectives of people who are not us. It's going to be like having some amount of conflict resolution and working through each side's perspective and sort of trying to figure out, like, acknowledging, okay, like what's hard for you, what's hard for us, how do we find some way to like coexist with each other? And what I'm seeing on the internet, which really scares me, is like less of that, right? We're actually seeing like more polarization and like more echo chambers forming. And so if we like touch this, it's the third rail, it's a dangerous topic to touch, but I think like we're going to work on it. Now, in terms of, there's a lot of stuff that people brought up that I think is kind of important. So I think this is where the way that we handle this, or the way that we solve these problems, may not necessarily be with the one tool of Stream. So for example, what we've found is that people tend to not, okay, so the first thing is that someone acknowledged that our population is segmented, right? So there's like, not everyone wants the same thing. So one of the biggest challenges we have at HG is how do we figure out how to satisfy everyone? Because not everyone wants the same thing. So we're thinking a lot about some of these other things. So for example, if we had someone come on and discuss gender dynamics from a scholarly, non-psychological perspective, my guess is that stream would not do well. It doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. It's just it tends to be not what people come here to see. Is it important? Absolutely. Is it interesting? Absolutely. Would it do well on Stream? Probably not. So then the question kind of becomes, how do we have this kind of, how do we share this important information in a medium that is going to go over well? And for the record, like, the psychedelic streams is like one of the worst performing streams that we've ever had on HG. So it seems that when people come here, what they're really interested in is like personal perspectives as opposed to theoretical discussions. That's been the big thing that we've sort of discovered. So I'm not saying that those perspectives aren't important. They're incredibly important. It just appears that Stream is not the best way to do them. So it doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. So this is going to kind of segue into the next thing, which is that we've figured out at Healthy Gamer, I think, and this is the big thing in 2022, that there's a lot of different tools at our disposal. There are tons of tools at our disposal. There are all kinds of issues. Do we need more diverse perspectives? Absolutely. Would we want someone who's like the guest that this person was envisioning? Do we want to share that person's perspective? Absolutely. And we have way more than just Stream, right? So we've got like a podcast, we have a subreddit, we have potentially like long form written content. We may have Dr. K's guide. So we may produce like more guides, which are like in depth and not for everyone, right? So not everyone needs the same thing. And I think one of the big things that we're trying to figure out is how can we find the right resolution for these kinds of discussions? So for example, we may actually have more of an impact by having some kind of seminar on the Discord or having some kind of open discussion on the Discord or something like that, right? So like there's lots of different tools that we as Healthy Gamer have not used very well. So we're actually sort of, so someone's saying right now that the podcast is currently just an audio version of what we do on stream, but it doesn't have to be that, right? So what I'm kind of envisioning, what I'd be curious about is like, could we have a podcast for people who are more interested in other kinds of topics that are more in depth and have like other experts on as opposed to Dr. K? Like so we're exploring all of these ideas. We definitely know that, gender dynamics is a big issue within our community. So it's something we're very actively working on. I'm not entirely sure that we'll do a good job, right? Because so far, I don't think anyone has fixed the problem of gender dynamics. It hasn't been solved yet, and it's a huge problem. So I don't know that we can fix it, but we're absolutely willing to try. We may screw up along the way, and all we ask for is your patience while we try to figure this out and try to, provide people with the support that they need. Okay? So, and in terms of the guide stuff, we're very cognizant that the price point is difficult for some people. We try to price it basically as cheaply as possible. And there's also some data that suggests that, if you make things free, people won't use them. So this is also where we try to be very like non-exclusive in the sense that, the guide is really there to be a comprehensive resource, but as one person sort of mentioned, like you can find the stuff on stream. So a lot of the stuff is sort of available for free. It's just more comprehensively packaged, but we'll reevaluate, all of that stuff. So we really appreciate the feedback. We're really grateful to people for sharing it. I personally am not, upset. I'm actually quite happy with how the, what our response to all the gender dynamic stuff was. Like, I think it's just like, it's really important to know that this is such an important issue for many people that we need to like focus on more and explore better. So we're just figuring out how to do that because it's challenging. Okay. Okay. Questions about that? Check the most upvoted comment on the thread. How do I sort? Okay, this is a good point. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, lecture discussion on how to handle others' mental health issues and life issues. I imagine this topic would cover concepts like how to deal with working with, living with, taking care of, being friends, and or otherwise having relationships with people that are mentally unwell. How to recognize the person needs external help. How to set appropriate boundaries. How to recognize if you are the person creating excessive mental strain and what to do about it. How to maintain your own mental health common fallacies. Okay, this is fantastic. So we've got hopefully a lot of stuff coming in the pipeline this way. Discussions about aging, age, wasted youth, and missing out. Okay, so I'd say check out the guide because there's a video about that. It's not complete by any means, but good to know. More discussion of the parent side of the story and how they can improve themselves and help avoid hurting their kids. How to establish a healthier relationship with existing adult children and how to repair a broken or strained relationship, being emotionally ready to start a family. Parenting styles. Okay, this is a lot. Okay. Have a lecture on why exactly you shouldn't be. Okay, so this is good. I'm glad I checked. I'm glad someone made the suggestion. How to help other people. Okay, this is great. So these are way easier to do. Tell you how to raise your kid? Absolutely. So I think this is the challenge with society right now, is that, before, like maybe this is just a current bias and this isn't really fair, but I really do think that the world is getting like more complex. Like there's like more considerations to have. There are more options. And I do think parenting is like more difficult now than it used to be like 100 years ago. Like I'm not saying that life is more difficult. So life may have just been like harder before, right? In terms of like infant mortality and stuff like that. Like it just may have been worse, but things are so much more challenging. Like parenting is like such an evolving target. Like there's so many issues that you have to understand now as a parent that like you didn't have to understand before. And so I'm not saying that that's bad. I think it's a sign of progress. But as we start to understand people better, as we like people become more complex, as the influences on your children start to change drastically, right? So like now we have like the impact of social media, which is just an impact that did not exist before. This is an entirely new impact on people. So we're going to work on this stuff. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Good to know. All right, shall we go to lecture? Okay. All right, so okay. All right. So let's take a look at, so let's talk about New Year's resolutions. So when the new year rolls around, a lot of people make a resolution, right? They decide that in this year, I am going to do X, Y, and Z. And the challenge with New Year's resolutions is that most people don't stick to them. And so what I'd like to do today is talk to y'all a little bit about a few different perspectives that we can understand about how to stick to your New Year's resolution. And the interesting thing about this is going to be like, you know, sticking to it involves, first of all, understanding why you don't stick to it. So it's my hypothesis that I'm going to lay out today that you can start a New Year's resolution and then at some point it's going to fall apart. And the question is, why does it fall apart? Because if you can prevent that falling apart from happening, if you can understand why the falling apart happens, then you can take steps to sort of prevent it from happening, and then you can kind of stick with your New Year's resolution. So to begin with, if we want to start on a very simple level with New Year's resolutions, we have to start by understanding, where does a New Year's resolution come from? So what do y'all think motivates people? What motivates people to do a New Year's resolution, right? Where does this motivation come from? So first thing that I want to share with y'all, if you guys have seen the goal setting and motivation set of lectures, this will be pretty familiar to you. If you haven't seen this, I highly, highly recommend you check it out. The first thing to understand is that human beings, when they decide to do something, they tend to have a couple of different reasons why they do stuff. And if you kind of think about a New Year's resolution, it's sort of weird, right? Because you say, I want to give up sugar, let's say, for 2022. No more sugar. And so there's like one part of your mind, right? No sugar. And then there's a second part of your mind that like a week later or a month later is like, I want sugar. So the first thing to understand is that if you want to stick to a New Year's resolution, you have to understand that your mind is not homogeneous. So your mind has multiple pieces. And if we want to create a behavior, we have to understand what are the pieces of my mind and which one is operating and which one takes over and like how does that kind of stuff work. I'm going to actually just move this real quick. Nope. Alert box there. Move the alert box like down here, I think. Okay. All right. So does that make sense? So our mind is conflicted. So let's start by understanding like what are the different parts of the mind? What are the different sources of motivation? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is desires. Okay. So these are things that like you want. So we'll use the word want. Like I want a Coke, or I want a yacht, or I want to be on a beach. I want to quit my job. Next thing that motivates us is shoulds. Right? So these are things that like you should do. Like I should study for my test, but I want to play a video game. So we can already see that like these two things can conflict, right? The next thing that we have are duties. These are kind of like obligations. And this is what gets super confusing is that a lot of times we think that our duties are duties, but they're actually shoulds. Like we say like, oh, it's my duty to be healthy. No, it's not. It's not your duty. These are things that you're like kind of obligated, or you have an external thing that is like kind of forcing you to do stuff. And then the next thing that we have, the last thing that we have are values, or things that we care about. So I know it sounds kind of weird, but a lot of people will, when they think about a New Year's resolution, what they'll do is they'll think of it as a goal, right? I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to cut out sugar. It's basically something that's hard. And basically what a New Year's resolution is stuff that I should do. Most New Year's resolutions come from the should category. But if we look at like basically science, yeah, I mean, gross overgeneralization here. But if you look at what people are actually motivated towards, they tend to be happy and productive when they're more on this side of the quadrant than on this side of the quadrant. When you're way over here, you have a hedonistic, empty life. When you're over here, you can have a successful, empty life. Right? So like if I listened to my parents and I was a good Indian boy and I became a doctor, even though I wanted to become a video game programmer, I can become successful by doing all the stuff that I should do, but it's going to be empty. I'm going to be like not happy on the inside. So over here, when we live like on this side, we're going to tend to have a fuller life. Like we'll be happy, right? And hopefully we'll be successful too, but we'll kind of get to that in a second. So the first thing to understand is that so the first question you should ask yourself, so this is step number one, is where does my New Year's resolution come from? Okay. I know it sounds kind of weird, but like a lot of times we don't introspect. So step number one is to actually introspect about your New Year's resolution. Like think about it. Like ask yourself, like, is this something I'm just coming up with arbitrarily because it's something I should do? Is this something that I really want? Is this something that I care about? Because the good news is that these two things tend to drive behavior way stronger than these two things. And the main reason that they drive behavior is that they tend to be resistant to costs. So when I care about something, I'm willing to pay something for it. When I have a desire, it's like harder to pay something for it. When I have a should, it's like harder to like expend something for the sake of like something I should do. But if I feel obliged to do something, if I feel duty bound to do something, if I feel honor bound to do something, I'm going to make a sacrifice for that sort of thing. I'm going to make sacrifices for stuff that I care about, but not things that I want. So this side is way more sacrifice oriented. Now here's the main problem. When we make New Year's resolutions, we focus on a should, and we tend to not think about costs. So when I think about like, okay, I want to give up sugar in 2022, like what is that going to cost me? Am I willing to pay that cost? Like, am I really willing to no longer eat like for the rest of the year? Like, am I honestly willing, and this is a question to ask yourself, am I willing to pay this cost? Because a lot of times when people sign up for resolutions, they don't really think about what it's going to cost them. So like, think about if you give up sugar, for example, that means like, you know, no more Frappuccinos or whatever you like to drink. Like if I go to a birthday party, like I'm not going to get to eat cake. If I have my own birthday party, I'm not allowed to eat cake. Like, am I willing to give all of that up? If my friends go out for dessert, I'm just going to tag along and like not have a single bite. When it's 2 a.m. in the morning, sure, you can do all those things. And we'll talk about why it's easier to go for dessert with your friends and not eat a single bite. But you crack when it's 2 a.m. in the morning, you're feeling a little bit hungry, and there's like, you know, your roommate bought some brownies and they're just sitting there and like no one is watching, and that's when you're going to crack, right? So the first thing that you've got to do if you want to be successful in a New Year's resolution is introspect and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Is it something that I should do? And this is where if it's coming from one of these two quadrants, the cost really needs to be low. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So you need to try to minimize the cost as much as possible. So instead of like, you know, setting your New Year's resolution at no sugar, it may be something like, you know, like no sugar in beverages. So like no beverage with any sugar. So I can like eat a cupcake, but no sugar in a beverage. So no sodas, no sugar in my coffee, no like, you know, sweet tea or like whatever. So you need to adjust the cost, especially if it comes from the should want quadrant. Okay. And I know it sounds kind of weird, but if you really want to be successful, You have to like introspect and then prep your brain for the cost. This is going to increase your chance of success. So when you think through the cost, I would actually write it out. So I would like take a piece of paper and write out like, why am I picking this? Which quadrant is this coming from? And the second thing you should write out is like, what is this going to cost me? And even writing it out is going to be like prepping your brain for the cost. Because what tends to happen with New Year's resolutions is that we're unprepared for the cost, and then the cost hits us, and then we're like, it's too much. And then our mind starts to conflict, right? We have this side, and then we have this side, and then we weren't ready for it. So side number 2 wins. So start by introspecting and like doing that awareness-oriented work, and prepare yourself for how bad this is going to suck. If you can, if it's really coming from a should or want, I'd highly, highly recommend reducing how difficult you make it, but at least prep for the cost. Okay, so this is number 1, is to introspect. Now, the second problem that we tend to run into is that we're going to talk for a second about the addict's brain. So I don't know exactly, this isn't like a real term or anything, this is just something I come up with. So when I work with people with addictions, what I find is that their mind has a certain gravity to it. And what do I mean by gravity? I mean that it's endlessly attracted to the source of addiction. So you'll see this a lot, like when people ask, like if we talk about marijuana, for example, if I mention marijuana, we're going to get all these different questions, right? And it's going to be, Dr. K, do you think that marijuana is ever useful? Is it ever okay to use? And that's a question that has a gravity towards it. You guys see what that question, like what that person is looking for is an answer that I say, yes, of course it's ever useful. Aha, I have my justification. So now I can move towards the marijuana. Excellent. And so there's something that people will say, but I have insomnia. And they'll come up with really good reasons, right? They'll use a lot of logic. Oh, I'll quit next year. They'll have all kinds of reasons, but you drink alcohol, right? When talking to your partner. Easy. And they'll come up with all kinds of reasons. It helps with my anxiety. I do it for the fun. And no matter how you frame things, no matter how you discuss things, no matter what direction you go in, the mind has a gravity towards the addiction. So this is the key thing to understand about the mind. The mind is always going to want to move in the direction that it wants to move in. And if you want to succeed in a New Year's resolution, you need to understand that the thing oftentimes like the goal that you have, or you're giving something up, that your mind is going to want to move there. And so what I'd like to do is share with you all some of the tools that your mind uses and that you can use to sort of deflect this sort of very natural gravity of the addict's brain. And so you may say like, okay, but we just have to acknowledge that like your mind is not going to want to do the thing. This is essentially the point of like bringing up the addict's brain. That no matter how you twist and turn, at its core, your mind may not be working for you towards the goal. This is why we want to operate from here, because these are the 2 quadrants that will help us make sacrifices. So even the mind wants it, we're going to be able to give something up. We're okay with a sacrifice if it's on the right 2 quadrants, okay? So just be aware. So look out for the addict's brain. Look out for your mind and how it's going to try to convince you to give up the resolution, because it's not going to be working for you. It's going to be working against you. It's going to be like, you did it good for a month. You can have a cheat day. Like, don't worry about it. Like, it's okay. All right. So beware the addict's brain. Okay. So here's the first tip that I'd give you. Keep your New Year's resolution secret. Critical, 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 critical. So there is a psychological aspect of this and a spiritual aspect of this. So the psychological aspect. So when I'm giving up sugar and I go out to dessert with my friends, okay? It's so easy to not eat it, right? Because it's like, look at me. I'm going to stick to my New Year's resolution, bitches. Y'all all plebs are going to eat that crap but I'm going to show you how awesome I am by being so resistant and so willful. Right? So the key thing about advertising your New Year's resolution is that it leads to a positive emotion with no cost. Right? So if you tell someone, you're like, yeah, I'm giving up alcohol for 2022. What are they going to do? They're going to be like, screw you, noob. No, they're going to say, wow, that must be so hard. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. So you're like, you just said some words and suddenly people are like, oh, wow, look at this Chad. Isn't this person great? And so if you advertise like your New Year's resolution, people are going to be like, oh, look at how amazing you are for giving this thing up. You haven't actually like, they're not there in the quiet moments when you're struggling, like you've got the cookie in your hand and you're like, don't eat the cookie, don't eat the cookie, throw the cookie away. No cookie. No cookie for you, Dr. K. Right? So like this also recruits ego. This is a little bit more spiritual, but advertising your New Year's resolution gives you a benefit without any kind of cost. And then what happens is your brain is like, oh, cool. Like if I can get a benefit without a cost, why the hell am I paying a cost if I can just get the benefit by talking the talk? And now we know, right? So there's two kinds of people in life. There are people who talk the talk. There are people who walk the walk. Right? There are two kinds of people that have to do, like with startups. There are people who talk about starting startups, and there are people who actually start startups. The people who are talking about it are the ones that are like, oh, I've got this great idea for a company. I'm going to do this. 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 They're talking. It gratifies the ego, gives them some kind of, oh my God, that's such a great idea. Oh my God, you're so revolutionary. You're going to be the next like Elon Musk. Oh my God, that's so amazing. Just imagine. It's going to be fantastic. You're so brilliant. I wish I was like you and I wish I could start a startup. And that person's like, yeah, I'm so great. I'll tell you about my next idea next week and get another ego boost. It's going to be so awesome. And then there are people who are like actually like, run startups and they don't hang around on Discord. They're just like, I mean, maybe they do, not to bash Discord, but like there are people out there who are actually doing it and there are people who are like talking about it, right? So if you like think about people who are in shape, like they just go to the gym and maybe they advertise, maybe they're egotistical, but generally speaking, they just like go to the gym. Like most of the people who are in shape are not like advertising it all the time and talking about how they're going to get in shape. They're actually in shape. There are people who talk about getting in shape and there are people who are in shape. You guys get that? Now, there's another aspect of this which is a little bit spiritual, which may be psychological too, but this is sort of the tradition that I learned this from, is that anything kept internal compounds. Okay? So this is why mantra is kept secret. So when you do your mantra practice, you never share your mantra. I've never told a single soul what my mantra is. My personal mantra is known by two people. Me and the guru who gave it to me. Okay? So you don't tell anyone about your mantra. And what people realized, like the yogis sort of figured this out, is if you never tell anyone, it will increase in power. And if you vent it out to the world, if you vent that energy by sharing it with the world, it will decrease in power. So another good example of this is actually trauma. So in trauma, what we want to do is vent it out, right? So if someone has experienced trauma, they keep it inside, and it eats them alive. This is bad. So what is the solution? How do we get that energy out of them and stop compounding? We vent it through therapy. So when we want to do therapy or something, we're trying to vent the negative energy, that depressive energy you have in your mind, the anxious energy that you have in your mind, because you all know this if you have like anxiety, like it just loops in there, right? It just loops and loops and loops and loops and loops and loops. It never gets worse and worse, and you work yourself up into a frenzy, and then you've got a panic attack. And then what you really want to do is you just need to get it out. You want to vent it out. If you talk to a friend, they can help decompress you. You feel so much better. So energy that is kept within the mind will compound, and energy that is vented will diminish. And this is how you get talkers and walkers. Because these are the people who aren't talking about it, just stays in there and actually produces behavior. And then you have the talkers who are just talking about it all the time and they never like do anything. Okay? So keep your New Year's resolution secret. For those of you saying, oh my God, Dr. K, I already failed. Beautiful. You've activated my trap card. Don't let failure stop you. This is the biggest thing for a New Year's resolution. Don't let failure stop you. Okay, you're going to give up alcohol? You've gone 22 days without a single sip of alcohol, and then you screwed up your New Year's resolution? Like, where did we get the idea that New Year's resolutions have to be perfect from day one? Like, what the... Think about that for a second. Like, if you fail, so be it. Like, on day 24, you can be sober again. Right? So this is where it's like, everyone's like, oh, someone's like, just don't fail. No, no, no. This is the whole thing. Don't let failure stop you. If you screwed up, like if you resolve to exercise every single day and you go a weekend without exercise, it's like, I guess that's GG. It's now February 8th and I've failed at my New Year's resolution. So I guess I'll try again in 2023. There's the addict's brain. You guys see that? Easy. You don't have to worry about it. Try again in 2023. I'm gonna go get high. Stop the exercise. Don't let failure stop you. New Year's resolution. Where do we get the idea that it has to be perfect? The addict's brain gave it to us. That's where it comes from. Because then it's got the excuse. It's like, this is easy. This noob, he's gonna screw up a single time. All I have to do, this is what the addict's brain is saying. Like, let's talk about sugar. This is what your brain is saying. This noob, I just have to trip him up once. So he has to win 100% of the time. And I just have to win once. Because if I can get him to win once, this dumbass has this idea that if he slips up once, his resolution is broken, and then sugar, sugar, sugar all day long. So then your mind is like, all right, let's throw down. And then you win on day 1. Your mind is like, let's throw down on day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, day 9, day 10. It stops you once. And then it's like, easy. And then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I failed my New Year's resolution. And then your brain is like, yeah, that's okay. Try again next year, bro. You'll get it next year. It's okay. Try it next year, girl. You got this next year. But this year, just let it go. You screwed up. It's all right. Very important. Don't let failure stop you. If you really want to have a resolution, it doesn't stop no matter what. Right? Like, don't let failure stop you. This is what screws people up the most. It's like, everyone's going to make mistakes. You're not perfect. You're not enlightened. You're not a yogi or yogini, right? You're not any of those things, which is okay. You don't need to be. So if you screw up, just pick it up tomorrow or pick it up today. Oh my God, I'm supposed to exercise every single day and it's now 8 p.m. and I haven't exercised. I skipped my morning workout. Do something. Don't let failure stop you. We see this a lot in actual addictions too, right? So someone's like, oh my God, I was sober for 362 days and I screwed up. And it's like, okay, so you had a drink, which is okay. So you can still be sober tomorrow. It's like, like, it's not a big deal. You can go another 362 days and then you'll have gone 724 days and you'll have had one drink in 724 days. Like, that sounds pretty legit. That sounds pretty good. But the brain is like, no, I've screwed up. Now I can drink all I want to because I screwed up. The resolution is broken. So step number 2, don't let failure stop you. Okay? And then the last thought. So we talk a lot about ego. And so this is something that, people will ask me the question, is ego bad? Because when we talk about ego, we tend to think a little bit about, talk about the negatives of ego. But one thing that can be really, really helpful for New Year's resolutions is to actually think about your identity. So who am I? And to try to develop an identity that's positive. So I'll give you guys just an example. So a lot of times when we struggle to, adopt a New Year's resolution, we have an identity of ourselves. I'm going to just be harsh here for a second. So I am an out of shape nerd. Okay? Doesn't mean that nerds are out of shape, but we'll identify with some of these things, right? I'm not a very healthy person. So we'll have all kinds of negative conceptions. I'm a loser, right? So we'll believe these things about ourselves. And then if you kind of think about it, what you'll start to do is as you start the New Year's resolution, these people are trying to be something else, right? You're trying to be something else. But you sort of fundamentally like don't believe that you are this like better person. Like you think you're a loser who's trying to lose weight. So at the core, you have an identity that's sort of sabotaging you in the quiet moments because on some level, you don't believe that you can do this kind of thing. And so I know it sounds kind of weird, but what I would love it if you guys try to do is start to like change who you are. And I know I make it sound so simple, but I'll explain. So like, I want you guys to like tell yourselves, I am an athlete. Or I am a scholar. So pick something that you actually want to be, like, and like just start telling yourself, like, I know it sounds weird. I'm saying just change, but I want you guys to really try this. It's going to be easier than you think it is. So then as you go about your day, like ask yourself, what would an athlete do? Or what would a scholar do? Just ask yourself, like in this moment, like when you're thinking about what to eat, you know, if you're an athlete, like just what would an athlete eat in this situation? What would a scholar do in this situation? Like would a scholar like play World of Warcraft or would they actually like sit down and read a book? And I'm going to be that thing. Like you can be that thing. Because what's the difference between a scholar and a loser? It's like the choice that they make, right? Like if we look at someone who's an athlete, it's like the food that they put into their body, the way that they like treat their body. Like, do they take care of their body on a daily basis? And if you start doing those things, you will be that thing. I know it's kind of weird, but it's actually really simple and it's actually like bizarrely easy. And the problem is that deep down, if you believe you're a loser, you're going to go up against all of this like negative energy anytime you try to make a change. And what I want y'all to realize is that if you tell yourself, I am an athlete, and then you go to lunch and you ask yourself, like, what would an athlete order? And you order that thing. There's no difference between you and an athlete. Because what is an athlete? An athlete who is someone who eats particular things, exercises in a particular way. A scholar is someone who chooses to read instead of play video games. And so you can do all of those things and you can actually become all that person. It's actually so close to you. It's super, super bizarre. Okay? So I know this is like, I see that Chad is memeing and stuff, but for those of you, I want you to really try this. And this is one way that you can harness ego, is to actually like consider for a moment if your mind, so for those of you that are rebelling against this, that is the biggest sign of the addict's brain, right? Because your brain is like, ha ha ha, it's so easy. Huh, this is ridiculous. I could never do this. This is idiotic. This guy's just saying, oh, just call yourself an athlete and then stop eating sugar? No, no, no. That's stupid. That's so ridiculous. I don't have to do that. It's dumb. It's not going to work. And because I don't have to do that, I don't have to give up sugar. Fuck you. That's so idiotic. Just change. This is new. Realize how hard it is to change. Oh, yeah. You see what's happening there? Your mind is telling you it's hard to change. Don't bother, bro. Just sit there. Don't even try it. Oh my God. You guys see that? For all of y'all that are being smartasses, where is that thought coming from? Where is that thought coming from? Why do you resist calling yourself an athlete? Like, why do you think you're not an athlete? Why do you think you're not a scholar? Like, where do you get that idea? It's not true. It's because of a conception. I'm a loser. Like, that's not, I can't biopsy you and find loserness. I cannot. Even if you're the biggest loser on the internet, it's impossible. I'm not a very healthy person. I'm not like the other healthy people. And if you're trying to create a New Year's resolution and stick to it, and you're holding on to this crap on the inside, it's never going to work. Start to realize that you are actually an athlete. That what is an athlete? An athlete is someone who makes different choices from the choices you've made in the past. Therefore, you can become an athlete like this. Get up off your ass right now and exercise a little, because that's what an athlete... If we stuck an athlete in your body and in your circumstance, a real athlete, and we stuck them in your circumstance, what would they do? They'd start getting their shit in order. Right? They'd start exercising. They'd start eating healthy. They can start from wherever you are. Don't be held back by this identity. And if your mind is rebelling against that, it's because it loves this identity. It loves it. Because if you conceptualize yourself as, I'm a loser, what do you get to do? If your brain calls you a loser and you accept that, what do you get licensed to do? What do you get freedom to do? Tendies. We all love tendies. Gamers eat tendies. Ah, you see that? You don't have to resist. Play games. Sure. Right? Not bother learning how to socialize. Ooh, this is a big one. Absolve myself of responsibility because I'm lazy and I'm not like the other people. I'm not like the other people. Those other people that were born with the discipline gene. I got the short end of the stick, so I'm a loser. GG, no point in trying. I guess my mind gets to smoke pot and eat tendies all day. Easy. Whatever your vice is. When you start to believe that you're a loser, it's not actually true. This is the craziest thing. You're not a loser. There's like no such thing. No such thing as a loser. It's not an identity. You can lose in a game, sure. Like in that moment, you can lose a game, but you are not a loser. It's like, you know, like it's a state. It's not a trait. It's not a being. But you call yourself this, and then it opens the door to all kinds of behaviors. So if you really want to change your life and you want to like resolve to be something else, adopt a different identity. And you say like, but how do I adopt the identity? And I guarantee you this is going to happen. You behave like that thing and you say, what would an athlete do in this situation? Because how do you tell who's an athlete and who's a scholar? How do you determine that? Like, how do we judge that? It's based on their actions. And then like, once you start doing those things, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to realize, you know what? I am actually an athlete. I am a scholar. Because I am doing those things. Holy shit. Like, I can do this. Like, this is me. Like, this is actually who I am. This is who I've always been. I just haven't realized it. So this is a positive way to like use ego. Right? Okay. So to summarize, New Year's resolutions are tough. Why are they tough? The first thing is because they come from a stupid place, right? We just come from like, we just come up with this idea. We're like, oh, I'm going to do this in 2022. And the mind loves that kind of thing because it's like, you're not going to do that. So it has no problem with that. So it's going to get super excited. We get a burst of emotional energy that drives us to make a New Year's resolution. And the interesting thing is that if the behavior is driven by that burst of emotional energy, as soon as the emotion wanes, the behavior will disappear. This is why most people screw up with their New Year's resolutions. So instead, we're going to start by actually introspecting and trying to figure out, okay, where does this New Year's resolution come from? Like, where does it come from? Like, why do I want this thing? What part of me wants this thing? Because there are going to be parts of you that don't want the thing. And that's where the addict's brain comes in. Your mind is not going to want the New Year's resolution. There's a part of you that's like, yeah, it'd be so cool if I was like, oh yeah, I gave up this or I did this every day. And some part of your mind is like, bro, I don't want to do that. So to think a little bit about where the New Year's resolution is coming from and what it will cost you. I want you to know what you're signing up for. Read the fine print of the New Year's resolution. List out the costs. Write them down and understand what you're signing up for. And then if you're like, yeah, that's too tough, that's okay. So tone down the goal, right? Decrease the loan amount. You know, so like adjust until there's something that you can comfortably handle. All right. Second thing, don't tell anyone about it. Don't tell anyone. Keep your New Year's resolution a secret. If people ask you questions, they're like, do you have a New Year's resolution this year? If you don't want to lie, you can say, yeah, I'm kind of working on some stuff. Keep it secret. Because if you start telling people, they're going to start supporting you emotionally. And then your brain is going to be like, we can just talk about doing it and people will love us anyway. So like, why bother, bro? So keep it secret. Keep it to yourself. Next thing, don't let failure stop you. You're going to screw up at some point. It's part of life. You're not perfect. But the addict's brain loves to let a screw up result in complete absolution of responsibility. Right? Oh, well, now that I drank yesterday, so I might as well drink today because like my year of sobriety is broken anyway. Now that it's broken, I might as well enjoy myself. Okay? Keep it secret. Absolutely. Well said. Is it secret? Is it safe? So Gandalf the Grey understood this, right? He understood that to be safe, it must be secret. And then if you don't make it secret, it won't stay safe. So if you want your New Year's resolution to be intact and safe, don't tell a soul. All right? Don't let failure stop you. And the last thing is to use identity in your favor, so that a lot of times when we come up with a resolution, we are trying to be someone else. But all of that internal stuff is going to resist the goal that other people can accomplish. And that's why you fail, because you don't think it's actually you. When you need to actually realize that this is you, that you are not a loser, that you are an athlete, you are a scholar, you are an entrepreneur. You don't have to be grandiose about it. It's not like something to be proud of. It's just what you are. It is simple. You don't need to tell a damn soul. You don't need to walk around saying, I'm an athlete, a scholar, entrepreneur, polymath. Oh yeah, I'm all of those things. No. You're not going to tell damn soul. It's what you keep on the inside. Just imagine how your life is shaped by the way that you view yourself on the inside and everything that it shapes about your interactions. So start to realize, it's not believe, it's realize that you are those things. The only thing that is stopping you is your choice. And then when it comes down to making a choice, ask yourself, what would this person do? And then if I do that thing, I am that person, because that's all an athlete is. An athlete is just someone who exercises and eats healthy, right? Like that's what it is. A scholar is someone who is learned and studies, like who's curious about the world and like tries to learn things. So you can do all of that. You just have to do it. And then if you try this for a little while, you may be shocked to believe that, holy crap, you can actually be this thing, that you are this thing. That this entire time you just not realize that you were that thing. And it is your own mental conception which has held you back. So this is what I would recommend. If you want to do a New Year's resolution, go for it. But just make sure you take care of your identity. Make sure you understand where it comes from. Make sure you understand what it's going to cost you. Don't tell a damn soul, and don't let failure stop you. Easy. Questions? Okay. I see a lot of people are talking about... Okay, so someone's asking about accountability. Doesn't telling others add accountability? Sure. The question is, does accountability actually help you? So like, what kind of accountability does it add? Let's just think about this. So if you want to tell other people your New Year's resolution in order to hold you accountable, how are they going to hold you accountable? Right? So like you say, well, if I say I'm going to do something and then I don't do it and other people find out, they're going to think this about me. Right? Usually it's about the perceptions of others. You don't want to be a disappointment in the eyes of others. And I can tell you, if you want to transform your life into a very positive and healthy direction, the disappointment of others is a very toxic form of fuel. Right? So this is where if you have a real accountability partner, that's different. So if you like, this is where you don't want to tell others. If there's someone who's going to like do it with you, like if you're looking for a workout buddy and both of y'all are going to like get into shape together, then by all means, work with another human, but don't tell people about it. Right? If there's actually an accountability who will work with you, who will hold you accountable, who will remind you and encourage you and support you, then by all means, confide in that person. But don't just tell people that you're doing this thing. So there's an actual accountability partner who will like hold you accountable and will, be mean to you if you don't live up to your goals, then go for it. But chances are, in my experience, most of the time, accountability just encourages people to hide. That's honestly what it does. You think you're getting people to hold you accountable, but your addict's brain is going to just start hiding from them. Right? That's truly what happens when you try to get external accountability. You're going to dodge. And that's the whole point, is that you can't succeed in this thing unless you are the one running it. Like, no one else is going to make you work out and eat healthy. You're just going to trick them. It's what we all do. Like, we're like, oh yeah, like, you know, we lie to people all the time. So like, I don't think external accountability is a useful, it can be a useful tool, but it's not like the general strategy towards success. I think most people who become very, very successful and are very happy with the direction of their life are not being held accountable by external people. We have tons of people in the world who are being held accountable by external forces. They are all unhappy. Maybe not all of them, but you know, most of them. Like, you think of it, just think about like controlling parents. Like, they hold you accountable all the time. No one enjoys that. It hurts you. It hurts your motivation. How about if we trick ourselves? No, you can't trick yourself. You can direct yourself, but the trickery is done by the addict's brain, right? It's like trying to, like, if you're playing chess against yourself, you can't trick yourself. You can never trick yourself. The addict's brain will trick you because you're not aware of it. It is absolutely aware of you, right? You can't trick yourself. So stop trying. This is the whole point. Like, so if we even think about the question, oh, what if I trick myself? Well, then, like, why do you think you're asking that question? It's because you don't want to do the work. You want to make it easy on yourself. You're looking for a shortcut and a bypass so that you can trick your brain into this life hack. Like, why do you guys think life hacks are so popular? It's because what they're selling you is the avoidance of doing any kind of personal work. It's like, I'm going to biohack, life hack my way to success. Just drink this supplement. And I biohack by hitting myself in the nuts every morning that I don't drink my supplement. And that's how you do it. You hold yourself accountable. Every time, I saw this once, I swear to God, I saw this. Someone was like, put $100 bill for a New Year's resolution. Put $100 bill on your fridge. And if you fail a single day, you light that $100 bill on fire. And that'll teach you a lesson. It's like, bro, if I was strong-willed enough to light a $100 bill on fire, I wouldn't need help, right? It's like everyone's trying to life hack to make their life easy. No, just like accept that life is hard and just give it a shot. You will be amazed at how capable you are. You don't need to make it easy. It's just the addict's brain. It's like, I don't want to. Help me. Can I take this Wait, are you saying if I take the supplement, I don't have to work? I'll take that. Easy. Right? Like, don't try to trick yourself. If you want to move forward in life, what you need to stop doing is tricking yourself. Tricking is what holds you back. It's how the addict's brain works. Right? So, like, your mind is going to trick you all the time. Trickery is a tool of the addict's brain. It's not the tool of, I don't even know what to call it, the self. Like, the yogis don't trick themselves. You just focus your mind and don't let anything get in the way. It's as simple as that. Okay? Okay. So I see a couple of good questions. How do you help someone with an ego that tells them that they're a loser? How to find a way to learn to communicate with other people. We're going to get to those in a second. So I'm going to just point out one contrary opinion. So someone is saying, you are all bots, is saying, I think telling others adds accountability. I completely agree. Telling others does add accountability. The question is, on balance, does telling other people make you more likely or less likely to succeed? Does accountability actually work for you? Does it actually move you in the direction that you want to go? Because what I would argue, maybe I'm wrong here, I don't have data, and you could be right, is that the majority of people tell people about others, their New Year's resolutions, and that the majority of people fail their New Year's resolutions. So those two things are correlated. They may not be causative. In my experience, keeping your New Year's resolution a secret is the best way to make it succeed. And that on balance, the accountability of someone else tends to be outweighed in the average person by the ego gratification and the instant reward and positive feedback that you get. Now, but seriously, you can absolutely use accountability as a tool. Like, don't get me wrong. But I would say that generally speaking, telling other people, it may increase accountability, but that most people just lie or don't talk to their friend to whom they're trying to stay accountable. Because then what is your friend going to do if you resist them, right? If your friend is like, comes to your house and throws out all your sugar, like, what are you going to do? Like, they're not going to do that. Or you're going to cut them out of your life, right? So you may be right. Maybe right. I don't know. Okay. Let's talk about social stuff. This is a good one. Okay. This is a good one. Love this one. Okay. Let's do this. Next one. From Porn Throwaway 1728. Can you guys believe that this account is a porn throwaway that was made in the 1700s? Wow. It's like a 300-year-old porn throwaway account. So I forgot how to socialize. Title pretty much says it all. The most I usually do in a friendly conversation is an occasional quip, and most of the time I sit on the sidelines watching everyone else do what they do. My brain simply goes blank when I have to consider how to express myself. I don't even know what chatting with people means. I'm on the spectrum, so it's probably some parts innate disadvantage and some parts inexperience. From what I could gather, I have some sort of fear of getting in other people's way or not having anything to contribute, or otherwise cannot tell how they will react. There's also this sense of feeling like they will have to accommodate me in my strangeness, as well as that of having some resting bitch face and a tendency to glare. I do find as long as all parties have some well-defined role in the interaction, e.g. cashier or customer, and in fact have some semblance of willpower when troubling other people is not a significant risk. Honestly speaking, I don't know where to begin from here. Aside from tackling it head on by forcing myself into random conversations wherever I feel like it, there should be some way to at least make that process less jarring. So Porn Throwaway, I certainly hope we can make this process less jarring for you. So what we're going to do in order to make it, instead of just saying forcing yourself into random conversations, we're going to start by understanding why it's difficult for you to socialize. Understand what's going on in your brain that makes it come up with a blank. Because here's the problem, right? Like when you try to socialize, your brain draws a blank. And so it becomes really, really hard to socialize if your brain is drawing a blank. So let's start by understanding, how does your brain draw a blank? Where does that blank come from? Why is it coming up blank? And if we can understand how it draws a blank, and then we can understand how to change that so it no longer comes up blank, then the process should be a lot easier for you, and you won't have to force yourself into stuff, okay? So let's start by understanding a little bit about how brains draw blanks. So when I set a task, my brain tends to come up with how to accomplish it, right? So if I say, man, I'm really thirsty. I don't need to say that. I think I'm really thirsty. And then my brain is like, oh, there's a water cup here. Problem solved, right? So our brain, when we set a task, our brain will operationalize that task. So the term operationalizing is the process of breaking apart one large task into its individual components. It's the execution component, okay? So I'll give you all an example. So if I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and their brain's ability to operationalize tasks is like different. So I can tell my 6-year-old, go pack a bag for the weekend. And she can like take that complex task. And if I tell her if I give her the goal, her brain will tell her what to do. So the brain is like, okay, I have to go get clothing. I have to go grab my toothbrush. I need to go get something to read. I need to go get this. I need to get toys. So the brain will like execute and won't come up blank. If I tell my 4-year-old, go pack a bag for the weekend, her brain is going to be like, I don't know what that is. Like if I break it down for her, she can understand it. But she can't operationalize the task. She can't like break it apart, okay? So if you're drawing a blank in social situations, the problem is that the goal that you have, your brain doesn't know how to get there, which in turn leaves two solutions. One is we can try to operationalize towards the goal, or what I think is going to be simpler is we can change the goal in our mind so that the brain can follow suit with like what it's supposed to do. Okay? So for example, humanity in general is becoming less able to operationalize. So if we look at society and especially how our brain functions, more stuff is being done for us. So this is absolutely true for gamers. So if you look at video games, they're very good at like close-ended problem solving. So the game will give you the goal and will give you the pieces for the goal and will allow you to assemble them to get there. So a good example of this is a puzzle in a video game. A puzzle in a video game has a set solution and all the pieces are given to you. You just have to like put them together in the right way. The problem is that like, so games will also give you like, you know, like markers, right? So they'll be like, okay, go here and talk to this person first, and go there and talk to there. It like lays everything out for you. You never have to figure out what to do. Whereas like, if you look at life, it's like, how many jobs should I apply for? Like, how many applications should I figure out? I don't know. Like in an MMO, it's like, fill out 10 applications. Like, go deliver these 10 applications, these 10 people. Like, go do this fetch quest. It breaks everything apart for you. And it's not just games, right? It's also things like technology. So, you know, when I log into Netflix or I load up YouTube, like, I don't even have to figure out what to watch. Like, YouTube will tell me what to watch. It'll be like, hey, what do you feel like right now? Here's this list of choices. What do you want to learn about today? I don't have to like decide for myself what I want to learn about. I'm just going to log into Reddit or I'm going to log into YouTube and it's going to do all that work for me. So the process of like breaking apart a problem and doing open-ended problem solving, like if I'm trying to figure out what to major in, even that is like narrow, right? Because the college provides me with majors. On a broader level, it's like, what do I do with my life? Like no one knows how to answer that question because as a society, we are having things broken down into choices for us. It's all multiple choice. There's no like free answer anymore, right? It's like, what are you going to major in? Are you going to go into college? Are you going to go to trade school? Are you going to do this? Are you become a crypto bro? Like, what are you doing? So as our brain has had to do less abstract, open-ended problem solving, because literally most of the time it is like being prompted to react to stuff. Like these kinds of things happen where our brain doesn't know, like, what am I supposed to do in a social interaction? It's like, what are the goals of the social interaction? Like, I'm confused. Like, where's the quest marker? What am I supposed to do? Like, I need someone to explain this to me. And we can even see that this person clearly is this way because look at this. I do fine as long as all parties have some well-defined role in the interaction. The quest has been given to me. Your quest is to go and purchase a bell pepper. Very good. I can do that. I know what the goal is. I know exactly how to interact. I'm going to go and present them to hand the cashier the bell pepper. They will ring up the bell pepper. I shall pull out the wallet. I shall give them the money. I shall take the bell pepper. I shall say thank you. I shall smile and I shall move on with my day. Success. Quest completed. Gain 300 XP. So we can see that this person does fine as long as there are bounds to the conversation, right? But I don't even know what chatting with people means. It's like, so this is a situation where we have forgotten how to socialize because chatting is a sandbox game. It's like, what's the point? There's no quest marker. Like, I don't understand. Chatting is a sandbox game. Like, what's the point? There isn't a point. And now your brain gets super confused. It's like, how do I operationalize? How do I get from point A to point Z? And there is no point Z. There's just like, I don't understand where I'm supposed to go. And then the brain draws up blank. Doesn't mean you're dumb or anything. On the contrary, it's a huge problem where people are like forgetting how to socially interact because everything is multiple choice. So even like Tinder, right? Like I forget how to talk to people if I use Tinder, and we see it on Tinder, by the way, right? Where it's like now the app is just going to give me people, and I have to swipe right or swipe left. I never have to approach anyone, and then they will send me a text, and I will respond. And it's like everything is being done for us. So we're forgetting how to socialize. So this is where, if you're in this situation, the main thing that you really need to do is understand what the goal of the interaction is, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about this. So when you're chatting with someone, this is the goal. It's a brief opportunity to get to know the other person, okay? This is the way that I want you to think about it. This is just a chance for you to figure out, is this someone that I want to interact with in the future or not? That should be goal number one. And so then your brain will be like, okay, well, how do I figure that out? Well, it's like maybe ask them some questions about themselves. So, you introduce yourself and then you're like, hey, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I mean, that's a hard question to answer. But you can say like, what are you excited for in 2022? That's a great opener. What are you worried about in 2022? Right? You can even go like, you don't even have to ask a question. You can even say like some neutral response, like, man, I can't believe it's 2022. It's crazy. The other person's gonna be like, yeah, it's crazy. It's like, so what do what's 2022 looking like for you? So you can just start to ask a couple of questions. And remember, the goal is just to figure out like, do I want to hang out with this person ever again? Second thing is to think a little bit about your goal, yourself in the interaction. So this is where it's an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself. That's the purpose of chatting. It's not like you're not trying to get this person to like you. It's to just share a little bit about yourself, right? So, man, I can't believe it's like 2022. It's nuts. They're like, yeah, man, it's nuts. I'm like, yeah, I've got like, you won't believe, like towards the end of 2021, I made this post about gender dynamics and like a ton of people that I, like hanging out with went nuts. And so now I'm trying to figure out like what to do with that. So you kind of just share something about yourself, right? So like it's an opportunity for you to share a piece of yourself. Just don't share D's nuts. Okay? And then if you share something like that, you'll see what the other person does. So this is socialization is about hitting the ball across the net, and then you'll see what they hit back. Okay? So it's an opportunity to get to know someone, and it's an opportunity to share a piece of yourself. And the main thing to understand about these brief social interactions is that they're brief, that nothing has to come out of them. If you want to understand how to chat, like nothing has to come out of this. Understand that this person is going to be alive for the next 50 or 60 years. Just assume that for a moment, that you're going to be alive for the next 50 or 60 years. In the grand scheme of things, you have one moment in time where the two of you are together and you have an opportunity to exchange something, which could turn into a second conversation or friends or whatever. But at the end of the day, like if you say something wrong, like that's not that big of a deal. It's not like you've ruined this person's life. They're going to go on and live their life. You're going to go on and live your life. And at the end of the day, this is just a brief chance meeting, right? It's like if I walk outside and I look at a tree, this is a brief interaction between me and the tree. The tree doesn't really care that I appreciate it or don't appreciate it. I don't really care that the tree appreciates me or doesn't appreciate me. We're just in each other's presence. We're just going to kind of chill for a little bit together, and then we're going to go our separate ways. So when it comes to chatting, it's just an opportunity to have your life very, very gently intersect with someone else's life, and something could come out of that meeting, or nothing. The high likelihood is nothing is going to come out of the meeting, which is totally fine, and that's what life is. It's a string of experiences that have no real consequences, right? That's what the majority of life is. Every time I take a breath, it's not going to transform the world. Every time I take a walk around my house, it's not going to transform the world. Every time I meet another human being, I'm not going to transform their life. They're not going to transform mine. It's just a tiny little opportunity for you to get to know someone else and for you to share a little bit about yourself. That's all it is. And once you begin to realize that it actually doesn't matter what happens today. Like I'm not going to ruin this person's life. I'm not going to save their life. They're not going to ruin my life. They're not going to save my life. You can sort of be a little bit relaxed, right? So what's the purpose of a sandbox game? It's to build something cool. It's like a multiplayer sandbox game where it's like, I'm going to put some stuff together and like, I'll see if you want to put some similar stuff together. And if you want to build a hut and I want to build a car, like you're building your hut and I'm going to build my car, and like, that's okay. Eventually what'll happen if you enter into sandbox games with enough people is I will build a car and then you will build a car too. And then I'll walk over and be like, wow, that's a really cool car. I never thought about making the wheels purple. I always assumed I would make the wheels black. And the other person is like, no, man, purple wheels are so much better than black wheels. I'll be like, cool. I never thought about that. Oh, maybe I'll make a red wheel. It's like, yeah, that's dope. Make a red wheel. And then suddenly, like, you have a friend, right? And so this is how social interaction works. So if you're struggling to understand social interaction, first thing to understand is that our brain has been sort of shaped by too much choice. So instead of figuring things out for ourselves, whether it be quest markers in video games or going onto YouTube or Twitch and like It tells you what to enjoy, right? Even today, like you guys are showing up to this lecture, you're watching this video, and it's like, you didn't decide, hey, this is what I want to seek out. You just like showed up on YouTube or on Twitch or whatever, and Dr. K chose what they're going to talk about. So you're just given a choice. And so social interaction can become very, very difficult because there's not a clear choice to make. There's not a clear goal. And so like your mind draws a blank because the way that your mind populates with thoughts is that it has a particular target and then it figures out how to get there. So if I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink some water. It has a goal and then it sets up the steps. So if your mind is drawing a blank, that means that you don't know what goal to set. And so if you want a very simple goal to set, if you want to understand what's the purpose of chatting, the purpose of chatting is to have an opportunity to get a window into someone else's life, get a window into their thought process, to learn a little bit about them, and to share a little bit about yourself. And out of the 1,000 people that you're going to meet in the next 3 years, a handful of those, that'll turn into something else. But you don't need to seek that out. You don't need to look for it. You don't need to be tied to it. It's just an opportunity for you to, interact with another human being. And if nothing comes of it, so be it. Right? Questions? So this is a great question. So High Cartier is asking, what if it's a grill? And by that, I assume you mean girl. So I know this is going to be kind of mind-blowing, very difficult to understand. But the genitalia of the person that you're talking to makes no difference with how you should interact with them. I know it's shocking that just because they have genitals that are different from yours, or maybe they're the same and you're a lesbian, who knows? Assuming a heteronormative perspective there, but I don't know many lesbians that refer to other women as grills. So maybe that's a safe assumption on my part. Makes no difference. Shocking that humans are humans and the genitals don't matter. Don't treat them differently. Treat them like humans. They can like cars too. Just like get into the sandbox game and build what you want to build. Let them build what they want to build. And interact with them as people. The genitalia does not need to define the interaction. Shocking, I know. Confusing, I know. Humans first. Yeah, so I understand that some people struggle with that. That makes sense. But then the question is, like, where does that struggle come from, right? So if you have difficulty talking to the opposite sex or girls or the sex that you're attracted to, however, where does that difficulty come from? That difficulty comes from setting a goal that you don't know how to execute, right? So now, like, I'm playing a sandbox game, or I'm playing, let's say, Skyrim, and I'm given a quest of, mine 1,000 minerals and 1,000 gas. And then I get super confused because, like, I don't know how to accomplish that in this game. Like, it gets confusing for me. I don't know how to do this. Then I get anxious, right? Because it's like, so stop playing that game. Like, don't worry about, and don't have an expectation to the interaction. Don't try to do something because they're a girl. Like, that's where the problem is coming from. The problem is coming from the goal that you set for yourself, the expectation that you set for yourself, the demand that you put on yourself that this expectation should go a certain way. It's like, no, this is just a brief interaction with another random human being. And the more that you can reframe towards that, the easier it will be to talk to, like, women. Right? Does that make sense? It's all, like, up in here. Who randomly meets 300 people a year? So, like, I don't know if you guys are participating in chat, but there seem to be 5,315 people right now, each of whom is interacting with you. And people are adding each other, right? So like, oh, like I'm an indoor, like you're interacting with like 5,000 people right now. Right? Like you're interacting with people all the time. Sure. No. Hold on a second. Before you guys discount this kind of interaction, this is real. You can hop on Discord afterward. You're going to talk to other people. Like you meet 300 people a year on Discord through games and through Twitch. Don't tell me otherwise. Right? And people will respond to each other on chat. People will answer each other's questions. Like those are interactions. And that's easy. Why? Because there's no expectation. Right? Y'all get that? We meet more people now than we used to. We have more opportunities for interaction than we used to. This is the big paradox of like being online, is that there's like way more people to meet, and it's like somehow it's way harder to meet them. It's kind of weird, but I can absolutely do it, right? You can have a meaningful conversation with someone. I actually think that the Discord is really good at this, where it's like, because people can sort of offer support, they can like meet for a moment in time and there's no expectation. That's why it's so easy to hang out with people on Discord, because you're not expecting anything from them. Right? Okay. All right. Next one. Okay. I find everything cringy. So I'm finding everything in life cringy. My attempts at conversations just make me feel cringy. Seeing others conversate is cringy. Seeing everything in social media is cringy. People around me make me cringe, and I try to avoid being around when I want to make friends. It makes me feel like everyone is trying too hard and are just corny, especially when the conversations are just random nonsense. I feel like this is holding me back from engaging and making me feel like a bad guy. Even when I play multiplayer games, I cringe at anyone using meta weapons just trying too hard. In my head right now, I understand why anyone would do what they do, and of course they need to use meta to secure the dub. But when I'm in the moment, I just find myself cringing at everything necessary in life. Any tips or explanations on this, I would severely appreciate. Fantastic post. Okay. So, let's try to understand. This is going to be like kind of like an internal answer to this. So if you're concerned that things are too cringy, and you think you yourself are cringy and that other people are cringy, we're going to approach this in two angles. One is we're going to talk like internally, where cringe comes from, and we're going to talk about externally, like what it means to actually be cringy, okay? So the first thing to understand is that cringe is essentially a judgment, right? So if you label something as cringy, that is a judgment you are making on something else. So if you want to be less, like if you think the world is way too cringy, this is actually a problem of your mind judging too harshly. Now, I'm not quite sure exactly why this person thinks everything is cringe, where that judgment comes from, but if we think about what capacity of the mind, what part of the mind labels things as cringe, it's essentially a judgment. So in terms of social interaction, sometimes we have difficulty interacting with other people because we feel we're cringy, right? This person didn't explicitly say that, but maybe they did. But I'm sort of getting the sense that they have difficulty interacting with other people because they feel that they are cringe, because in turn, they think everyone else is cringe and everything is cringe. So this is the challenge, is that I think if you're, how can I say this? The first thing to understand is that if your mind is like thinking about cringe too much, you're not actually attuning to the outside world. So the process of labeling something as cringe, the process of believing that you yourself are cringe, is actually a judgment that you're carrying on in here, right? So you're playing this whole script in here, like judging that, and you're like, oh my God, that's so cringe. Like, you're not 100% paying attention to the conversation. You're not absorbed in the conversation. You're busy criticizing the conversation, thinking about the conversation. You're thinking about the conversation, right? You're almost on a meta level. Instead of participating in the thing, you are commenting about the thing. So for example, if I eat a piece of food and I enjoy the food, or I can be critical of the food, and the more critical I am of the food, the less I'm able to enjoy it because my mind is not attending to the outside world. My mind's attention is on the internal world and a judgment that I'm making. So this is kind of the interesting thing, is that like the negative energy in your mind will continue to cycle. This is why this person finds everything cringe, because their mind is in such a judgmental mode that all it knows how to do is like judge. So it's like Judgy McJudgerson. So everything that happens, I'm going to judge it. 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 So the first question is, how do you stop doing that, right? So like, if my mind is in a highly judgmental mode, there are a couple of things that could be going on. The first is that you learned this from somewhere. Okay? So if you learned it from somewhere, that means like maybe you were judged a lot growing up, or like you're very, very sensitive to judgment, or you grew up with a parent who was constantly judging you. Therefore, your mind started to learn how to be very judgmental towards other people. So you need to connect those dots and then you start to realize, oh, actually, this isn't like me actually thinking this is cringe. This is my mind's conditioning, labeling everything around me as like insufficient in some way, right? So that's the first question, is like, where did you learn to become so judgmental? Second thing you can do is start to externalize. So if you find yourself being like super judgmental, instead of like thinking those thoughts and being trapped up here, try to absorb yourself in the experience of whatever you're doing. So if you're talking to someone, actually like stop and listen to them, right? Instead of judging what they say, like try to understand what they say. Try to understand, where does this person come from? Even if I think it's cringe, where's it coming from? For yourself too, if you're judging yourself and you think you are cringe, notice that that too is internally focused, right? Your attention is not pointed towards the outside. When you speak words, you are not attending to that person's response. You are just caught up with how your words could be perceived. So instead of actually paying attention to how your words are perceived, you're filled up in your mind with how they could be perceived and how cringe it could be. So I want you to just notice that, like, if you think you are cringy and you have a lot of crippling social anxiety, notice that you're not actually paying attention to the outside world. You're just in your own head. And this is why it can be so crippling, because the positive feedback, the reassurance, is never going to come from your head. The positive feedback, the reassurance, is going to come from the outside world. But unless you attend to the outside world, if your attention is focused on the inside, then all you're going to experience is the cringe over and over and over and over and over again. Does that make sense? And these people feel stuck because the very solution they need, the medicine that they need, is not inside, it's on the outside, but their mind keeps on focusing on their internal thought process. Okay? Does that make sense? So, cringe is born of judgment, the judging part of the mind, the manas. So you can try to think a little bit about where you learned how to be so judgmental, why you are so judgmental, and the solution is going to be actually attending to external stimuli. So really listen to what someone else is saying. Even if you think what you're saying is cringe, you're thinking that in your head, whereas you need to pay attention to the facial expressions of other people. What do they think? Okay? Are they enjoying the conversation? Try to like pay attention to the actual conversation. Y'all are talking about something. Who cares how it's received or not received? Just have the conversation. So switch your attention externally. Now, this conversation would not be complete without actually talking about cringe. So here's the thing. How do you know if you're actually being cringy? So cringe, in my opinion, if I were to define it, what is cringe and what is not cringe? Cringe is forcing someone into an interaction. So it is like super, super cringe is like forcing something, okay? So I'll give you all an example. Like hitting on your waitress is cringe. Hitting on your waiter is cringe. Why? Because like they don't have a choice, right? Like who's the cringiest person? Like your grabby uncle at the holidays. Grabby uncle comes over to you and is like, starts grabbing you. And it's like, you can't, what's cringe is like, you can't really say no. Like it's not like a clear problem. Like it's not like a violation. It's not like an assault. It's not like something that you can go to jail for, but it's something that's forced and people aren't given a choice to like interact with you or not. That's what's cringe, right? So like if you're a gamer and then someone on voice chat is female and their genitals are different, like forcing an interaction with them is cringe. If you're in an anime convention and there's a woman there and she is wearing a shirt of an anime that you like, going over and talking to her, not cringe at all. Not paying attention to her signals and persisting in a conversation with her is cringe. So forcing an interaction is cringe, right? Like that's the definition of cringe. So if y'all want to learn, like, how do I actually be? So the first part was like, you think you're cringy in your head, but you may not be cringy at all. Actually being cringy is one very, 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 very simple thing, which is, do I force interactions on other people? And if the answer to that is yes, you are being cringy. So this is like chain texting someone who's not responding back to you. That is cringe. You're forcing them into an interaction. So if someone has an escape route, if someone does not have to interact with you and they choose to interact with you, then you are not being cringe. Okay? So if you guys are trying to figure out what cringe is, am I forcing people into interactions? Am I letting people go if they want to go? Then I'm not being cringe, because then it's totally cool. It's like volitional. Like, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. So just ask yourself this question. Am I forcing someone into an interaction? Because this is what's going to happen. A lot of y'all that are concerned about being cringe are going to discover, actually, I'm not being cringe, because I came over, we're at a party, I sat down, they sat down, we're talking for a little bit, they've had ample opportunity to leave, and they haven't left yet. So I'm not being cringe. Totally cool. Totally fine. Not a big deal. On the flip side, this is going to be scary, because a lot of y'all are cringe. And you don't realize you're cringe because you haven't really thought a little bit about the way you're forcing people into interactions. You're not really thinking about the passive aggressive crap that you do to get people to interact with you, right? Like when someone else is compassionate and then they don't respond to your text message, and then you like threaten self-harm because they're not responding, that is cringe. You're forcing them into an interaction, right? You're emotionally manipulative. So unfortunately, this happens all the time. Happens with random people on the internet. Happens in families. Happens when parents do it, right? When they guilt trip you into coming for the holidays. Like, that's cringe. They're forcing an interaction on you. So you really need to think long and hard. Are you forcing interactions on people? Are you letting people leave gracefully? Or do they have to like push you away? Because that's what happens when someone is cringe, right? Like, the person who's on the receiving end of the cringe has one of two options. They can escalate to the point of being somewhat inappropriate, and they fucking hate doing that because then they seem crazy, right? It's like if someone comes over to you and is like sexually suggestive but never says anything wrong, and then you're like, dude, just get away from me. It's like the other person's like, what? You're overreacting. I didn't say anything. And then you feel like an idiot because you're like, yeah, like you didn't actually say anything, but you implied like way too much crap for me to be comfortable with. So you like force people, and this is what cringe people do. They like figure this out. They figure out like what's that sweet gray zone where like they don't clearly warrant a rejection, but they're like I'm in the uncomfortable phase, right? Like I'm like kind of right in the mid on the border of that boundary. So you got to be super careful. If you are cringe, ask yourself this question: do I let people leave the interaction gracefully, or do I punish them for leaving? Because then you could be cringe. Questions about cringe? So the line between cringe and toxic. So toxic tends to be like damaging. I don't know that cringe is necessarily toxic. So you can have people who are not cringe and toxic and people who are cringe and not toxic. There's like somewhat relatively harmless people. Now it gets blurry because oftentimes when you set a boundary with someone who is cringe, they will become toxic. So once like they're like kind of like, you know, Uncle Billy is like touching you a little bit too much. And then you're like, Uncle Billy, please stop touching me. And then Uncle Billy's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm your uncle. Like, what do you think, pervert? That's toxicity. So sometimes when you reject someone who's being cringe, they will manifest toxicity towards you. Right? Questions? No, it doesn't even have to be like molesting, by the way. It's just like some people are just touchy and you're just not comfortable with that, you know? It doesn't have to be like sexual. It's just... I had an uncle who would like to hold my elbow when talking to them. They'd like shake my hand and hold my elbow, and they'd like just hold the elbow. It's just like weird. Okay. So one person is asking, so the more you're attached to people or things, the more cringe you are. Sort of. So the whole point of cringe is that there's a discrepancy between how into their face you are and how much license you have to be in their face. So for example, like when you're married, right? Like there's some interactions which are not cringe because they're like acceptable given the level of your relationship. So there are things that, you know, like that would be cringe in a different relationship, but in a marriage, like things are, you're allowed to have like more interactions, right? So it's like, I'm going to be around every day, for example. Like my wife is going to be around every day. Like we live in the same house. Whereas if someone else was like showing up that I wasn't married to and was around every day, like that would be kind of cringe and like forcing interactions. Does that make sense? So the more you're in a relationship, the more cringe behaviors in a sense. I mean, they shouldn't be cringe, but the forced moves a little bit, right? Because there's going to be like more stuff that's like acceptable to do. Good question. Marriage just legalized cringe. Yeah, so Dr. K, you can take it too far the other way and appear cold. How do you stop that? Absolutely. So forcing interactions is cringe, and then like being cold is like not having enough interaction. So how do you stop that? The answer is actually the same. So when you're cold, chances are you're still thinking a lot about how the interaction is going to go, and you're just erring on the side of being like enclosed. So we see this a lot with people who are socially anxious, where they'll like kind of come across as like cold because they're afraid of overstepping, right? So they don't want to be like, so they end up like just kind of being in their own head. And the more you're in your own head, the colder you're going to be, the more removed you're going to appear to other people, because you're not like empathically interacting with them. You're not attending to their facial expressions, their words, things like that. So the more stuck you are in your own head, paradoxically, you can appear both cringe and you can appear cold. Okay? Can you grow to find cringy things as not cringe? Absolutely. So if we're talking about the internal side, remember that cringe is essentially a judgment of the mind, right? So as we become less judgmental, we can start to appreciate things that like other people will regard as cringe. So like I'll give you just a simple example. So let's say that there's someone who's dancing at a wedding who really doesn't know how to dance. In watching them, a lot of people are like, oh my God, that's so cringe. Whereas like if you're non-judgmental, you're like, hey, like that person doesn't know how to dance, but man, they seem to be having a fantastic time. That is awesome. I'm so happy for them. Even though they're like, really don't know how to dance, and everyone else is like, ugh, right? You can be like, cool. Person is just enjoying themselves. Fantastic. Right? It's okay. They don't have to be perfect dancers. Is there a meditation for cringe? We're going to try to make one up right now. Let me think about this. Yeah, so I think what we're going to have to do. Yeah, okay, I've got a meditation for y'all. Y'all are so screwed. Okay. So this meditation is going to be a little bit different. All right? This is what we're going to do. You guys want a meditation for cringe. So remember, understanding cringe. So like our solution is going to be understanding stuff, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on headphones and I'm going to start listening to some music. And while I listen to the music, I'm going to just vibe with it on the internet. I have no sense of rhythm, so Dr. K is super bad at this kind of thing. But I'm just going to listen to my music and I'm going to vibe with it. And y'all aren't going to be able to hear it because what I want you to do is vibe with your own music, right? So turn on some music and just vibe. And people are saying, oh my God, no, 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 no. Can you feel the cringe coming up? And then we're going to sit with that sensation, okay? And everyone's like, oh my God, no, 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 don't do it, right? So you feel that cringe arising. So this is how we're going to master the sensation of cringe. We're going to evoke it, learn how to tolerate it, right? Like we're going to like let it be there. We're going to let it wash through us, and then we're going to be like, okay, at the end. Okay? All right, so I'm going to put this on. I'm going to start vibing. Okay? This is great. I feel so embarrassed. It's so hard. Oh my God, what have I got myself into? Okay, let's go. I can feel that cringe coming up. Feel that cringe. Feel it. Feel how idiotic you feel. And now listen to the music. Take a deep breath. Feel the racing of your heart. So now I'm feeling like I need to move my body more. And that makes me feel more cringe, but we're going to move. Enjoy the music. Right? So, feel it. Now, feel it. Let the whole world judge you, but you're going to enjoy this moment. Breathe. Listen to the music. Big, deep breath. All right, my song ended too. Wasn't that great? So people are wondering. Meditation for cringe. So you feel so damn cringe when you're doing it. Like all these people are watching you like, I don't know how to dance. Like, what are they going to think? But just like focus on the sensation, right? Like don't focus on the cringe. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. Oh my God, it feels so bad. And then as you externalize to the sound of the music, as you let yourself getting caught up in the music and out of your mind, you'll start to feel better. You can use the breath as a tool. So big, deep breath, let it and move. You know, feel that movement, feel that music, take a big, deep breath in and then breathe out. Now everyone's wondering, what did I listen to? So I'm debating about whether that's an important part of this or not. Right? So like if you guys are thinking about what I listened to, why is that important? The question is, what are you going to listen to? Right? I think my playlists are public. Okay. So that's phase one of the practice. All right. That's just phase one. Now, you're going to notice those feelings of cringe. The more that you get into the music, the more you're going to be okay with the cringe. This is still playing. Okay. So that's phase number one. So breathe into it, get used to it. You can do it on your own if you want to. Next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to do it in front of other people. So you're going to go to a public place, phase two of the practice. Put on your headphones. Go to a park. Start jamming out. Other people are going to see you. You're going to feel super cringe. Oh my God. But no, you guys think I'm done? No. Whoa. We're just getting started, dude. Right? So you're going to go into a public place and you're going to jam out to your music, because here's the cool thing. You're going to discover something awesome, is that you can enjoy that song just as much if there are other people around. right? No, 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 no. You guys want to learn real meditation, right? Don't you want to learn like real meditation? So now that we've practiced at home, we're going to do this 3 times at home. We're going to go out into public. We're going to walk down the street. We're going to jam to our music. We're going to jam. You know, people are going to be looking at us. You're going to look at, you're going to, phase 3. You ready for this? Phase 3? You're going to be jamming out. You're going to make eye contact with someone. You're going to be like, yeah, what's up? You're going to be like, and just walk right past. Eye contact, pump the shoulders, and move right past. That's it. That's it. Y'all got me? Right? That's what we're going to do. So phase 3, you're going to acknowledge to other people, like, I know you see me, I see you, I'm vibing, having the time of my life. That's how it is.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you want some green juice?
Not right now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right? That's phase 3. So if you guys really want to overcome cringe, if people are saying like, okay, how do I overcome cringe? This is a meditation to do it. So you're going to use your tools of meditation, grounding yourself in the breath, do practices at home, right? So you should do Nadi Shodhana and like Om chanting and all that crap. And then let yourself get lost in the music. Focus all of your attention on the music. Feel the music. Let it come out through your body. Do it at home first. You're going to feel a little bit cringe. You're going to breathe your way through it. Next, you're going to do it in public. You're going to feel even more cringe, but now you've practiced. You've lifted those light weights. So now this is a heavier weight, but you're going to be ready for it. Your mind is going to be ready for it. You're going to feel terrible. And then something magical is going to happen. As you work through that cringe, you're going to feel amazing. Because now the opinions of other people are no longer holding you back. You're not dictating your life based on what other people think. Because dictating your life based on what other people think is a terrible way to live life. You're going to be you. And that's totally fine. You're completely comfortable with it. Side effect, building confidence. 3. You can sit on a park bench. You can close your eyes for phase 2. You can just vibe a little bit. People can walk by. They can judge you a little bit. Let them judge you. Phase 3. Eyes open, baby. Walking down the street, make eye contact. Right? That's what we're going to do. You're going to smile at people and you're going to move on. Right? You're not going to force any kind of interaction. You're not going to talk to them. Because here's the thing. If there's some crazy dumbass who's listening to music, jamming out, looks at you, smiles, and nods their head, who do you think is more embarrassed? Who do you think is like other people can't handle that, but I guarantee you will make someone's day. They won't even understand what the hell is going on, and you will make their day. Because for a moment, they're going to feel embarrassed. They're going to feel accepted. They're going to feel like this guy's such an idiot, but they're so like, it's just like pure positive energy. It's amazing. You guys get that? Like, this is back when wild Dr. K walked the streets of Boston. Sometimes a wild Dr. K would do this to people, right? You're just going to live your life. You're going to look at other people. You're going to make contact. You're going to smile. You're going to do your thing. You're going to move on. And for that moment in time, I can guarantee you that in that moment in time, there will be like a moment of happiness for another human being. Like, this person's so crazy. But in that moment, they will forget about their student loans. They will forget about their breakup. They will forget about, how they need to study for their test. For one moment in time, you will give them such a gift. And then you're just going to move on with your life. They're going to be like, what the hell was that? I don't even know. You're going to leave them like, what the? And that's it. That's phase number 3. Okay? This is a meditation for cringe. Who are we rating, chat? This has been such a painful idea to think about. What the hell? That's the whole point. It's a meditation on cringe. Like, what? You think we're going to be academic about it and be like, oh my God, this is cringe. This is the natures of cringe. This is how we classify as a cringe. There are 3 attributes of cringe. There's this one, this one, this. And then your mind is like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I understand cringe now. Great. I'm more knowledgeable. Good job, me. No, we have to live it, right? So meditation is about experience. That is what the real self is. To feel that cringe within you and work through it, as opposed to armchair quarterbacking. I'm going to watch a YouTube video about cringe and then I'm going to watch 10 more, but I'm never going to actually face the emotions inside me and never going to adjust my behavior. Instead, I will watch YouTube videos instead of making alterations to my life. No. Feel the cringe on your skin. Absolutely. Live it, embrace it, work your way through it, and then be free of it. Okay, Who are we rating, chat? Wyvern? Okay, is Wyvern streaming? Let's do it. No, Wyvern's not streaming. Jebaited. Who else? Okay. I don't know who this person is, but someone recommended. You guys want to rate critical? Okay. A lot of people are saying Moist critical. So is Moist doing something? How do I... What is it exactly? Okay, the first eye is a... There we go. Okay, I don't know what this is, but finishing bully and Inscription. Okay, he's playing Inscription. That's dope. So send Moist some love. Moist is actually really good because he's like one of the least cringe people I know. So he may have, you know, a lot to say about how to be not cringe. I'd love to hear because he's an excellent thinker. Moist is like an awesome thinker, very critical thinker. So I love watching his videos. So take care, send Moist some love. We'll see y'all on Wednesday.